Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with random reviews from the Overflow room. And we're going to wrap up our survey of recordings by crazy, individualistic, eccentric conductor Hermann Scherchen. We did three videos of the Japanese Westminster Scherchen edition. And now we're going to do like all the other random stuff, some of which is very interesting. These are live recordings, air checks, some things taken from that Westminster edition, and really some fascinating things because his choice of repertoire was amazing. He did everything in the world under the sun, and whether it came out well or it came out crazy, he didn't seem to particularly care. So we have this thing from the Great Conductors of the 20th Century series. Remember that? This has Beethoven's Eighth, well, this is great Beethoven's Eighth, Coriolan Overture, Stravinsky's Firebird Suite, Schoenberg Suite for String Orchestra, 3 movements of it, the Karl Orff Entrada. We've talked about most of this stuff in previous videos. Reznicek's Donna Diana, Haydn's Military Symphony, the most insane performance of that you've ever heard, and Brahms' First. So here they all are. It's a nice little sampler, and I hung on to it even though I have virtually all of that stuff elsewhere. Next on Orfeo, Schoenberg's 5 orchestral pieces, Erwartung and Die Glückliche Hand, the opera, with Keith Engen as the bass in Die Glückliche Hand and Magda Laszlo as the soprano in Erwartung. These were recorded in 57, 55, and 59 by Bavarian Radio. It's with the Bavarian Radio Symphony Orchestra, a better orchestra than he usually got his hands on. Do they play all this like impeccably? Well, depends on your definition of impeccable. It may have more peck than able, but it's not bad. Then we've got this 2-disc set on CPO of Reger orchestral works. From 1960, Radio Bremen. Yes, it seems like that's where it's all from, with the Nordwestdeutsche Philharmonie and Margareta Benze, alto. We've got Reger's Lustspiel overture. Nobody was less Lust than Reger. I think that's rather amusing. The Serenade in G major and the Romantic Suite. And then on CD2, we have An die Hoffnung for alto and orchestra. And then the Beethoven and Mozart variations and fugues, those 2 big, huge variation works. And this is really this was a real collector's thing when it came out because this stuff wasn't available, and CPO got its hands on these air checks, and it was like really great to have because these things were not easy to find, a lot of this music. Now that we found it, some of us may be wondering why we bothered, but that's another question. What's this? Oh, Tara. I mentioned before, Tara was the label founded by Scherchen's daughter, Miriam Scherchen, and they must have had all kinds of tapes and things sitting around. They were based in France, and it was Miriam Scherchen, and I think his name was René Tremine. He must be in here somewhere. I keep forgetting what his name was. I mean, I knew the guy after all, and we corresponded and whatnot, and had, let's see, here's Miriam Scherchen, yes, and yes, René Tremine, there he is. Then he passed away, I believe, and that sort of ended the label, and it sort of evaporated. Some of its stuff is still, you can still find it used, or see it listed on Amazon and whatnot, but the label itself no longer exists. So this particular disc is Wagner's Siegfried Idyll and Tchaikovsky's Pathetique, again with the Nordwestdeutsche Philharmonie. Those radio archives probably had a lot of Scherchen material. And the Siegfried Idyll is with the orchestra and recording inconnu. They have no clue who it is or when it was made. So there you are. There was a lot of Scherchen stuff issued on Tara. I was very, very selective in what I got because by then my Scherchen period had kind of passed, and I only wanted certain things to fill out my collection. And here we've got the Mahler 3, 6, and 10 Adagio and Kindertotenlieder from Leipzig in 1960. And these are actually fun recordings to hear. They're with the Leipzig Radio Symphony Orchestra. The Mahler 6th is abridged. I mean, he cut things and was happy to do it. The Kindertotenlieder is sung by Sonia Cervena. And let's see, and we also get with the Berlin Staatskapelle the first movement only of the Eighth Symphony from 1951. Nobody needs to hear these things now, but there was a period when all these historical recordings, they were interesting, and sometimes they still are. For me, the blush has worn off the rose, I have to say, but I keep them for sentimental reasons and for professional reasons. And here's the other Mahler 3 with the Wiener Symphoniker from 1950, recorded by the orchestra of the ORF in Vienna. Doing Mahler in Vienna in the immediate post-war period took a certain amount of courage. And Scherchen was really into it. He was a major Mahler promoter. So that was interesting, even though the performances could be a little bit like, it was good to hear it getting played. It really was. Then we've got, this is an actual Westminster reissue, this thing. Remember these? They had, I think, his whole Beethoven cycle. I only wanted 6 and 8 because they go at metronome marking speeds, and the 8th is unbelievable. Really fabulous. I don't know how many versions or incarnations of this 8th I have. We talked about it already a couple of times. So, and it is marvelous. It's with the Vienna State Opera Orchestra and the Royal Philharmonic, and it's definitely worth hearing. Then I have, what do these come from? Members at AOL.com, Read This Classics. I have no idea. These were recordings that you got from some guy David Gideon, who was doing this stuff, did a bunch of his Scherchen things. And so I grabbed a bunch of them back in the day, and I've hung on to them. These are, CDRs. These are overtures, which we already talked about, most of them. Then we've got the Berlioz Requiem. Well, he was one of the few guys to do that. And this is with the Grand Chorus and Orchestra du Théâtre National de l'Opéra in France with Jean Girardot. And it sounds just terrible, but we don't care, do we? It was historically significant. Do they even tell us when they did it? Not here, but I think there are extensive notes with these things, to be honest with you. Let me see if the disc is bronzing. No, it looks okay. Every so often I pull these out to see if they've disintegrated or deteriorated utterly, and they haven't yet. No, this doesn't have anything. It doesn't have any notes or information whatsoever. Somebody probably knows. The Glière, Ilya Muromets. Yeah, he was one of the few guys to do the whole symphony without cutting it to bits. Everyone else cut it to smithereens. And this is with the Vienna State Opera Orchestra. And it's been remastered and reissued otherwise. And, it was just necessary to have because no one else was doing it. And that was the earliest version of the whole thing, I think. The Liszt Hungarian Rhapsodies with Liszt's more or less original orchestrations. This is with the Royal Philharmonic. And this has been reissued various ways, various times. And last but not least, the Vivaldi Gloria with Telemann, Leopold Mozart, Manfredini, Stölzl trumpet concertos, which, remember the other disc of trumpet concertos where we had Haydn and Torelli and those people, with the Vienna State Opera Orchestra. And there we go. That's it. That's my Scherchen stuff. It's a ton of it. And every so often it's fun to dip into and listen to it and be, sometimes delighted, sometimes horrified, but never bored. And that's the point, isn't it? So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.